Hello, and what's up to you all, Mindsetters? It is a lovely Thursday, and you know it's time for geography. My name is Abram, and I'm ready to help you with your geography matters. If you had a bad day at school, trust us to twist and turn your mood around with Dave, of course, our teacher. Dave, how's it?
How's it, Abraham? Did
I'm
you say
good.
you're going to
You
help
look so
them?
worried, eh?
You said you're going to help them, so please come forward.
I don't mind. It's a team effort, hey?
Yeah,
So I do
we
my
can
part,
do that.
you do your part. Are
Hello,
you good,
learners.
though?
Yeah, how are you doing? I hope you're ready for my lesson today. Abraham, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, what are we doing today?
I think before that,
Okay.
my writing last week was terrible.
Yes, like
I
over the past
practiced
few
the
weeks.
whole week, and I want to show the learners something
Okay.
before I even go on.
Brag a bit. Wow. Look at that. Look at
How's
that.
that? I deserve a round of applause.
You do.
Thank you, learners. Thank you.
Well done,
I've
Dave.
practiced hard enough.
You know, practice makes perfect. So the more you practice, the more you're going to master it. So Dave saw his weakness and he did something about it. So also, if you're suffering and struggling somewhere, identify your problem or your predicament and work on it. There are people who are always there to help you. Thanks to our director, James. He's been of help, to help you improve.
Yeah.
Other than that, tell us, what are we doing?
Yes, we're doing a very interesting section. It's dealing with strategies for industrial development. We're looking at post-apartheid, or apartheid first, and then post-apartheid industrial strategies. So it's quite an interesting section. And what's so nice is that many learners are covering this at the moment.
Okay.
So it's going to give them a little more information. And some of this information, some textbooks don't have because it's related to the curriculum. So it'll be a nice, interesting lesson for them to review and add information to their content.
Nice one. And talking about textbooks, Mindsetters, remember this show is proudly sponsored by Macmillan. So you can visit their website, which is www.macmillan.co.za, to check some of the textbook they have. And the content that we have is on those textbooks. But, Dave, let me tell them how to get connected with us.
Sure.
Right. Well, messages to chat with us, send us your questions and your comments about this show. Go to facebook.com/learnextra. Like the page, share it with all your friends, and tell them that they need to be part of this family because it is a learning family. Otherwise, on Twitter, we at learnextra. And lastly, get your notes, all of them, on learn.mindset.co.za. If you missed any, they are there. Even the links to the videos, you can catch them on that link. Otherwise, I'm here on Facebook to assist you, and the links are already posted on Facebook. Dave, over to you.
I'm excited. Let's get going. I'm excited to write.
Okay.
Okay, learners, let's look at what we have today. Let's just do an overview of that. All right? And what I'm going to do is look at or study the overview of apartheid and post-apartheid industrial development strategies. We'll be looking at the two, comparing them, look at the intentions of the two different policies. We're also going to look at the concept and distribution of industrial development zones and also look at spatial development issues. All right? And then we're also going to explore two concepts: industrial centralization and decentralization. Some very important concepts, also very relevant to what we see around us. So learners, let's get going. All right. Our challenge question, quite a nice one. I want you to think about it. During the lesson, I'll be giving you some tips where you can pick up the answers from. Let's look at our challenge question. Industrial decentralization was a strategy for apartheid and post-apartheid industrial development. So it was a strategy for both. Which policy was more sincere to addressing economic injustices? Which one of the two? You give an answer for that, and then give me reasons for why you say this is the case. A very interesting question, and I hope all of you get it right. But let's get on what we're discussing today. All right, I want to look at the apartheid industrial strategy first. Now, learners, on many occasions, you would have studied this through history, geography, that originally in the apartheid South Africa, there were many homelands all around South Africa. We had KwaZulu, we had Transkei, we had Ciskei, we had many of these, about 10 homelands we had, which purpose was that the black South Africans should belong to these homelands, while the idea was during the apartheid policy was to keep a white republic. That was the intention of the apartheid government. So what was the industrial strategies also? Remember, they wanted a white republic, all right? And they worked on the policy of the Bantustan policy to keep black people in the ethnic homelands. When I mean ethnic, you talk about the Zulu culture, a Xhosa on the other side, was to keep them in different homelands and created 10 homelands. Now, they also decentralized industries. On face value, it looked as if they were doing development, but it actually was not development. What was the intention here? They created these border industries, which were growth points surrounding the homelands around here. Okay, that was creating those industries down there. But actually, the aim of this industries was to keep the black South Africans in the homelands and also attract other black South Africans that are in the so-called White Republic away back to the homelands. So their intentions were different, not just to create development. All right. Obviously, industrials did not want to move. So what did they do? They created incentives for them to move, like tax concessions, transport rebates, like railway rebates. All right? So all these things were created to attract the industrialists to these areas. All right? Basically, if you looked at it, many of these areas couldn't even afford the products. So the main aim was to benefit the white population of the so-called White Republic that they were creating. All right? It actually wasn't very successful also because many people didn't move, and also people moved, they took their own skilled labor with and relied on the unskilled labor of the area. Then we get a few policies or development plans that came out. The first one was the National Physical Development Program. It was similar to the border industries, but what happened here, learners, was that development also happened around growth points, all right? Not only around the border areas or border industries, but at other locations, areas where there was potential growth like Brits, etc. Development happened around there. Then during the apartheid era also, a Good Hope plan was introduced. Remember, they started getting under pressure from the international communities of sort of sorting out the basic needs. The inequalities were great between different racial groups. So this policy was introduced to provide the basic needs. Example, food, clean water, sanitation, housing, education, health. These are all the basic needs. It was there. It was not successful again because it was introduced from a top-down approach and certain areas were selected. All right? It was not consulted with people at the grassroots level. But the intention was to show that actually some development was happening regarding the basic needs. All right? So these were the plans there with regards to this. So it was actually based on a racial issue to try to maintain a white republic. Then we had the post-apartheid sort of industrial development plan. And the post-apartheid, the main aim here, learners, was to address inequalities created by the apartheid industrial development. Remember, in the last section, you had these 4 core areas. PWV, or Gauteng as we know it now, Durban, Pinetown, PE Uitenhage, and Southwestern Cape. And a lot of development was happening there. Whereas areas like the homelands were not developed at all. So they were looking at to address social people and their communities, economic, to try and level the playing fields in terms of employment and salaries, etc., and political development, to integrate everything from the homelands into one South Africa. All right, and they brought in things like the Reconstruction and Development Program, the RDP, which was actually there to eradicate the effects of apartheid. Remember, the quality of life was not same. The services, the facilities were not same during apartheid. So they were concentrating on providing the quality of life for all South Africans by providing them the basic needs again. That all South Africans should have a livable standard of living. When I say livable, I mean that a standard of living that's acceptable and not below that it was during the apartheid era. All right? Also, another plan was also the GEAR policy, which was the growth, employment, and redistribution policy. This was aimed at economic development to create employment. So, rate of growth of the economy to actually create more employment. Obviously, learners, if the economy develops, there'll be more industries, there'll be more businesses, so there will be more employment. And therefore, it will achieve the aim. Unfortunately, we didn't have such a fast development in our economy, and therefore, it had limited success. But we're still keeping and going with it. All right? We look then at the policy of industrial development zones. Remember, we're looking at an area where all the people or businesses, remember PWV or Gauteng had over 44% of the industries. And between the four core areas, there were over 80% of the industries, less than 19% in the other areas. So, industrial development zones were created in many areas. What is an industrial development zone? It's a new area where there's growth potential. You understand? A whole new industrial area developed at different points in South Africa so that we could decentralize these industries and have development across the country instead of in a few core areas. That was your industrial development zone. As I say here, to encourage manufacturing in areas and use the resources of those areas to produce and import instead of importing goods, beneficiation. Remember, we're importing goods, we're paying a lot. Plus, other people in other countries are producing it. But if we produce it in our country, it's cheaper, plus we're creating employment, we're improving people's quality of life. All right, they were located around transport routes like Saldanha Bay, you understand? And they have international links, generally by harbors, okay, where transport is available and we can export a lot of stuff. Then we came across, and I want to come back to this first. Let's look at an SDI, the SDI. Whoa, look at that, Abraham. Nothing touching. Oh, I'm so impressed. All right, the aim here was to promote economic growth in underdeveloped areas that have potential by creating new jobs and an improved infrastructure. Infrastructure is a very important word. We created new transport routes along the ways so that we could link places. We created electricity supply, power, water supply. So if we link different areas, it was creating more economic development. In your exam guideline, you talk about the Maputo Development Corridor, the Wild Coast, and the Lebombo Corridor. All right, or SDI. All right, and I will talk about that just now. Okay, I want to show you something here. Look at this. This is the Maputo corridor. It linked up Johannesburg, Gauteng, in Mpumalanga, and Maputo on the other hand. And what actually happened here was because it linked up, there was so much opportunities. Industrial development can happen there. Your IDZs. Other development, because industries are developing, food is needed. Agriculture came through. Tourism improved. Look at this one. We've got one from here. From Cape Town moving to Saldanha Bay. What happened? Because the transport route improved, industries moved in here to create an industrial development zone. So the both are actually linked. Is that along the SDI, you can have your industrial development zones. A policy which was quite good, and we should continue to implement. I'll show you some pictures. This is the wild coast. Along this coast, tourism is huge. You understand, if we created proper infrastructure along this coast, we could have so much investment and sustainable investment, because if you keep the natural environment, tourists visit, and they can keep on visiting. You understand, provided you maintain the quality of this. The Libombo one, can you see here, guys, how the infrastructure was created? It linked this, and along it, we had industrial development. This is your IDZ, and this is your SDI. Make sense, guys? All right, and then we had the Maputo corridor, linking up Johannesburg, going through Mpumalanga, and then eventually to Maputo. That is your Maputo corridor. So, beautiful ideas. And lastly, let's get to the concept of industrial centralization and decentralization, which was involved in all these processes. Centralization, concentrating industries in a few core areas. There were some positive factors where all industries, like in the PWV or Gauteng, they could share infrastructure, they could share transport, power, so the basic physical infrastructure could be shared by these people. But negative distribution of wealth along the country was unequal. Gauteng compared to Northern Cape was very different. All right? Gauteng is developed, Northern Cape not as developed. Strain on the physical infrastructure with so much happening on one point. And the other problem was the pollution, congestion, massive rural-urban migration, development in other areas were limited because everybody came to these areas for employment. All right, slum areas developed, informal settlements developed in these areas because you cannot provide them with all the facilities at one time. Employment opportunities also decreased in the outlying areas because everybody came for a job down here. Industrial decentralization, on the other hand, was a movement of industries away from the core areas to the periphery. This is where SDIs and IDZs helped. All right? And it also helped alleviate the problems that were experienced with centralization. And before I give you a break, you can see here, there's Cape Town here. And right on the outside, along this road, we created a IDZ so that more development can happen. Whoa, I've said a lot, eh?
You've said a lot.
I think they need a break.
They do.
I'm sure they're going to go practice their writing and get it to my standards.
I think they should. Well, Mindsetters, when you come back after the break, I'll be telling you more about the giveaways that we have. But during this break, you do have the challenge question posted on the page. So get on it. If you're on our Facebook page, it is facebook.com/LearnExtra. Just type that on your address bar and it will take you straight to our page. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back, awesome Mindsetters. Now, Aristotle once said that the roots of education are bitter, but the fruits are always sweet. I'm seeing that with Dave, his handwriting, it has improved. It got sweeter and better. So keep it up, Dave.
Thanks, man. Thank
you. Guys, we've got this awesome giveaway, which is a Casio calculator. All you need to do is to answer the test yourself questions. They're already posted on Facebook. There's a link to Cura to answer those questions, and also your code that you need to enter on Cura. So guys, get entering right now because we are giving away these awesome Casio calculators. Dave, over to you.
Yes, I can't wait to get back, not to teach, to write.
To write.
Okay,
new hobby.
new hobby, yes. I hope you're enjoying my writing, Learners. Let's get to some of the questions now. I think that's the most important. That's what you need now, to look at those questions and see how you're going to apply the information. Okay? Right. Somebody says it's more than underlining. I haven't written a lot.
No, it's
I'll
more
prove it
like
wrong.
underlining, yeah, because that's what you've been doing. I beg to
Okay,
differ.
right, learners, let's get on. Let's see what we have here. It says, study the map and answer the questions that follow. Let's look at it. All right? What is given to us here? Not much information. We have Transkei. I'm also ringing it beside underlining. All right. And next to Transkei, we have a border industry. That's the information it's giving. So it's giving a homeland and it's giving a border industry. The examiner is going to focus on that. Most probably is going to ask us about border industries, etc. Okay. But there's not much information else. We don't have to interpret anything more. So let's look at it. Yes, we were right, learners. It says, explain the term border industries. And already you worked that out. What is a border industry? It's actually, they were growth points that bordered the homelands. There it is here, your border industry there. Growth points that bordered the homelands. All right? Let's look at another question. Is this an apartheid or post-apartheid industrial development strategy? Very simple questions, learners. If you learn your content, it's easy. You already worked this out. It happened during the apartheid era, so it is a apartheid development strategy. Okay? Explain the purpose of border industries. Remember, the main purpose was to keep a white republic, all right, to keep black South Africans, all right, in the homelands and encourage them to move back to the homelands. That was the big intention, all right, to keep a white republic. Let's look at the next question. State 3 incentives, all right, 3 incentives that were offered to the industrialists to move to these border industries. Okay? That seemed to be missing there, but to move to the border industries. All right? Okay, what was the incentives? You already worked it out. All right, you would have looked here, guys, at tax concessions. Number 1 here, where they said they can pay less tax. All right, I mean, that's a big boost to any industrialist that you're paying less tax. Transport subsidies, especially with the rail that was owned by the government at that time. So if you transported your goods by rail, you paid far less money than if you were in the main industrial areas. So it was a huge incentive for industrialists to say, but we're going to benefit so much. Labor concessions, all right, to move things, okay, into the area. Okay, the costs involved for your labor movement, etc., was far cheaper. In fact, even other things like electricity in some areas was given to you at a cheaper rate. If you rented buildings, etc., it was given to you at a cheaper rate. Bank loans sometimes was also organized at a cheaper rate. So they created a lot of concessions in order to move the people to these areas. All right. Explain why border industries failed. All right, they weren't as successful. All right, and we know that also in the sense that in many cases they had their own labor. Let me do that again. All right, and take it back here. All right, they had a lot of their own labor. All right, which limited the labor from their homelands. So the intention was, I brought all the skilled labor into the area. So what did I use? I used the homelands for unskilled labor. It didn't really develop the people that the so-called intention was mentioned at the early parts, that this is what we're doing for the homelands. All right. Secondly, many industrialists did not want to move. They were settled in the areas. They were making their money. So they didn't want to move from the centralized areas where they were settled. Why should we move? We're making enough. We don't want to move. So these were issues that limited the movement and did not make this border industries very successful. And as soon as the post-apartheid came in, this sort of system was thrown out. Okay? Right, let's look at the next one. Question 2. I've put in a little statement here, or a little article, because that's the type of questions that you can also get. So let's look at this. All right. Various post-apartheid industrial development strategies were put into place to accelerate economic growth. All right, and to address economic injustices. This is what you know the intention of this was, to address the economic injustices of the apartheid era. Some of these policies were the Black Economic Empowerment, BEE, Growth, Employment and Redistribution Policy, GEAR, and Accelerated Shared and Growth Initiative in South Africa. These were 3. All right, so let's look at the questions for this one. Explain the following post-apartheid industrial development strategies. BEE, you know that in many cases, especially in management and business positions, etc., during the apartheid era, most of this was held by the white population. And now it was trying to introduce the black population into these types of jobs and businesses and opportunities so that the playing fields can be leveled. So let's look at our answer here. Yes, it was aimed to bring black people into the economy. All right? Let's look at the next question. The growth, employment, and redistribution policy, the GEAR policy, again remember, it was the economic growth or the development of the economy which will reduce the employment. All right, we can look at our answer again. Aim is to create a fast-growing economy and sufficient jobs. Both are related, learners. A fast-growing economy is related to sufficient jobs. And the third definition here was Accelerated Shared Growth Initiative. And you know what was this? All right? This was trying to halve the unemployment and the poverty. Okay, that was the shared accelerated growth. Try to get growth quicker so we can halve these issues. All right? And if you look at this, it's to create economic growth and reduce poverty and unemployment by 50%, to cut it down, to bring these policies or bring these issues down so that we can have a more stable economy and we can improve the quality of life of all South Africans. All right. State and explain the main factor that resulted in economic growth and redistribution policy having limited success. Can you see what's happening here, learners? This is very content-based. So it's simple. You know this answer already, that economic growth was slow. Therefore, you understand we could not get as much employment opportunities because there's less factories. It didn't grow that fast. So there's less jobs, there's less businesses, there's less jobs. So let's look at our answer again down here. All right, it was slow economic growth. With slow economic growth, obviously, there will be less jobs available. If there's more economic growth, that means the economy is going up all the time. What's going to happen, learners? We're going to have more businesses, more industries, greater opportunities coming through, more jobs. Let's look at the next one. State 3 possible steps that could be introduced or taken to achieve accelerated and shared growth initiative in South Africa. Obviously, you would have worked these factors out. How can we do economic growth? How can we improve it? All right, we talk about education and various aspects. So we look at here, improving education, all right? How would that do it? If you improve people's education, they become more skilled, all right? And employment opportunities are better for them, and also higher salaries, all right? Which will generally increase opportunities by investing more money by government, getting overseas investors, therefore increasing employment opportunities. Providing the basic needs for the people. You may say, how is this involved? If I provide basic needs for the people, you understand, already the conditions of living will be better. Okay, they'll uplift themselves, they'll be more productive. So even this will accelerate economic growth. It'll bring in more stability in the area. All right? I'm going to introduce this one question, and learners, in between I'm going to take a little break because I'm going to give you all a break, but I'm going to introduce this question before we take that break. All right, let's take question 3, all right, which says, study the article and answer the questions that follow. It seems quite good that we look at a little case study or a little short description, because these things you'll be getting quite often, all right. I took one on the Maputo Corridor SDI, Spatial Development Initiative. All right, the Maputo Corridor SDI. The Maputo Corridor SDI connects Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and Maputo in Mozambique. All right, around 130 investments have been identified. The areas of investment include agriculture, infrastructure, tourism, and manufacturing. Now you may say, agriculture? If along that corridor, that SDI, if there's sort of development happening, then obviously you're going to get a need for more food, more agriculture. You understand? If you look at the infrastructure, to build the infrastructure, learners, you need employment. All right? You're linking up 2 areas. People from the countries want to visit each other there. All right? Tourism. You're seeing the road being built well and connecting areas. Imagine if we looked at, and I showed you that earlier on, if you looked at people in Mpumalanga, or if you looked at people in Gauteng, they got another venue or another area that they can take the goods through the harbor. You understand? Maputo is a harbor. Industrialists say, what beautiful infrastructure. We can build along it, all right? And we can take our goods out of this area to Maputo, where we can transport our goods to the other countries overseas. So everybody seems to benefit from this sort of thing, all right? I want you to, during this little break, you're going to think of sort of how would this have an economic influence over the areas? How would it benefit them? Okay? I'm going to take a little break now. I'm going to give you that break. And then I want to go to the sort of questions that I've put. But I want you to view it in your mind. And also view in your mind, how can this be applied to other SDIs also and IDZs? Let's take that break.
Thank you so much, Dave. Well, my sisters, I do see your questions, and still, if you're struggling, we're here to assist you. We'll take some of your questions later on. But now, talking about taking things into your own mind, we've got exciting news. We just hit 88,000 likes on our Facebook page. So, guys, thank you so much. The family is growing, and keep on sharing our page, and keep on telling your friends, your classmates to join us on the page, not only to like the page, but also to get the content on the page and help one another. That's the spirit of Mind Cities. But before we take this break, also, just want to send these few shout outs to you guys. Mandela, like he says, a shout out to all the geography learners from Maphela, from the president of Maphela Circuit, and all the best in trial. Last one, it's from Lucas Benji, Mpasi. A shout out to all the grade 12s in Zambia who are watching the show. Guys, thank you so much. You keep the show going and get connected with us. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back, guys. Now, more exciting news. It's more giveaways. We're having this awesome competition. It is Get Connected with prizes, proudly sponsored by Vodacom. We'd like you guys to get connected to our teachers, get connected to us as your social media presenters, and get connected to the content that we have. And lastly, get connected to one another as a family. Now, this awesome competition, it is about our teachers. We've got 6 teachers that would like you guys to vote for. And then overall, we're going to have the last teacher standing, but there are prizes for you guys, of course. If you share the picture that we have on Facebook, you get an opportunity to be put in a draw to win one of 60 55 Rand airtime vouchers. Already we've given about 20 airtimes, so there's 40 more airtimes to be given away, and 3 Sony Xperia L cell phones, because we've given 1. There were 4 of them, so you could be one person to get that. All you need to do is jump to our Facebook page on facebook.com/learnextra. Get all the details there. But the secret is, this teacher, Dave, is also amongst those teachers for this week. So guys, get voting. You vote for your teacher on Q, and then you go on Facebook and like his picture. So Dave, you must get all your students to vote for you, because there are cool prizes also for the teachers.
Maybe I should give them a pose or something.
I don't know. I won't say anything. Let's continue the lesson.
Okay, learners, welcome back, learners. What did you notice? And I told you to quickly look at all the other STIs. They all have the same aims, in terms of linking up places, in terms of developing of IDZs. It's just that they use the resources available in those areas. Like the Wild Coast, you've got the tourism. You may have raw materials somewhere else. Now, I know you're excited about the challenge question, but I want to go through these few questions before we get to that challenge question. All right, so let's look at this. Again, questions based on that Maputo Corridor Spatial Development Initiative. Again, all questions will start off the same way. All right, a little introduction into it. Explain the following terms: Spatial Development Initiative, and you know that already. All right, it's developing infrastructure, etc., or it promotes development along corridors in marginal areas by encouraging new transport links. All right, business, tourism, farming, and manufacturing. So the first thing is the spatial, where the roads develop. And along these roads and railway lines or whatever sort of infrastructure happens, development. What's an industrial development zone again? You worked that out already. All right? You know an industrial development zone is intended development or new development zones that are intended to compete with the other manufacturing areas. All right, they are also near large harbors, so they're competing. They're taking away industrial areas from the big core areas. It's creating more development in the other areas. It's bringing in investments. It's bringing in business. It's bringing up the people's lives in those areas. So such important issues that it brings up. Explain the relationship between spatial development initiatives and industrial development zones. From my explanations, you would have worked that out already. All right? Because we'll have these spatial development initiatives, which improves the transport, like you would have studied Cape Town, Saldanha Bay. All right? You drew up a beautiful spatial development initiative where you put up the transport routes from Cape Town to Saldanha Bay. And what happened? Industries say, why should I be in this congested Cape Town when I'm linked so well to Saldanha Bay? And there's transport facilities in terms of the harbors, etc. So even if I want to use Cape Town Harbor, the road links it well. So I'll go and settle and develop Saldanha Bay as an IDZ, and I'll be there. And if I want to transport my goods, I've got efficient transport networks. So I move into another area. So they are linked. Right? And as my little answer comes through here, it shows you clearly industrial development zones can be found along spatial development initiatives, like Saldanha Bay found along that road. Okay, I must put in a little paragraph question always. In a paragraph, approximately 10 lines, explain 4 ways in which the Maputo SDI promoted economic growth. You could list them already. You know infrastructure, you know it agriculture, you know tourism. You can name so many, all right? But your explanations can be around some of these points here. It improved transport routes, and obviously with transport routes, you have development happening along those transport routes, so it influenced economic development. Without transport, businesses, industrials are not going to settle in an area. All right, it created more jobs for the transport routes and the other activities that came through. It also increased tourism because people wanted to visit the different areas. And it improved agriculture. I've given 4 points here because now businesses were coming in, employment was coming in, people needed food, agriculture improved, the economy improved. So I've given you 4 points here, but you know there are various other points that you have here. All right, I know learners, you're waiting for that challenge question, so let's get to that now. Okay? Let's look at it. Let's go back to it, and I'm sure you worked it out now. Let's look at it. Industrial decentralization was a strategy for both apartheid and post-apartheid industry. So both talked about decentralization. All right, apartheid spoke about the border industry, the growth points, okay, because that was another one, okay, where they drew up these growth points where development can happen. Okay, the post-apartheid, on the other hand, spoke about addressing the inequalities, and they came with the IDZs and whatever, as we discussed. So which policy was more sincere to addressing economic injustices? We would have worked this already. Apartheid brought the economic injustice. It pushed black people into homelands, etc., and tried to create a white republic. So that was an economic injustice. So the answer we would go for is post-apartheid policy or industrial policy. They tried to create equality, to address these inequality things, to uplift the lives of people that were actually being deprived of their rights even. Okay? So it was economic, political, social that it addressed. And then obviously we had to give reasons for your answer. So we know it's the post-apartheid policy. Let's look at some of our answers down here. All right. First of all, we got it correct, and I'm sure all of you have got it correct because you're studying for your prelims at the moment. Let's look at it. First of all, the apartheid industrial development aim was to decentralize industries in order to keep black South Africans in the homelands. All right, it encouraged them to move. Intention was not sincere for economic development across the country. It was based at pushing people of a certain racial group into one area. Whereas post-apartheid industrial development, all right, was put into place to accelerate economic growth and to look at the economic injustices of apartheid and bring equal opportunities to all South Africans. It did not speak of a racial group, but it spoke about all South Africans, where it could uplift the life of people that were deprived of opportunities, uplift them, bring them up so that eventually the goal will be that everybody is on par. Okay, you won't have it in a society where all people will be of the same wealth, but everybody will have opportunities. And therefore, we brought in things like the black economic empowerment, growth, employment, and redistribution policy, accelerated growth initiative. All these policies were brought forward. But I know you guys nail those questions because you guys are tops. Is there any sort of things for me there?
Yep, there's a question for you, Dave, here. Let me get it for you. It's for actually 2 questions or so. Whilst it's loading, Ceci Pierre says, I love the show. Okay, right. Suicide, Temi Suselo says, what gave four major manufacturing regions a lead over the other regions?
Well, you need to look at each thing separately. Let's just take Gauteng, all right? Or as originally known as a PWV. The resources. Remember that area people didn't want to live at first. It was just farming area. And suddenly the discovery of gold, you understand, made that area attract people. There you're attracting lots of people. And when you're attracting them there, it also brings in other things. As people start growing in the area, the industries start coming in to cater for the needs. Farming improves. Things like the chemical industry came about because of dynamite for the mines. But then there were more materials. Iron and steel, iron ore, which produced iron and steel. The coal mines were massive, which also gave them power. So there were areas there that were good, that had resources. Durban Pinetown, the harbor. Can you see it? All right. And it produced things. Southwestern Cape, the harbor. Remember, the resources will change. Because in Southwestern Cape, you've got a different type of climate. It may have a disadvantage because of certain sort of core raw material or base metals, but it has different types of vegetation, your grapes, your whatever. So that actually promoted development in the areas. So there was definitely resources and various factors that promoted. And that is why you found your homelands were not situated in those areas.
Good one. Good one. Right. Here's another question from JR. JR says, I'm kind of confused here. What is SDI and IDZ and their difference? Please help me.
SDI and IDZ. Okay, I'm going to try and quickly skip back. I hope I can do it very fast. There we are. Oh, no. Let me go a little more. And there we are. All right. Your SDI is your spatial development initiatives. So, remember, JR, is it JR, am I right?
Yes.
JR, remember, nobody wants to invest in an area if it doesn't have the infrastructure, such as roads, etc. So, let's just take this area here, okay? I'm going to expand it. There is the border here, there is Saldanha Bay, and there is Cape Town. All right? Now, Saldanha Bay, there are opportunities of growth, you understand, along the coastline, the harbors, whatever. Now, industries are not just going to go and settle there. Okay, so what we have to do is create a spatial development initiative. What we have to do is we have to create proper roads, etc., in this area. All right, linking up the areas. All right, now that was your spatial development initiative. In order to promote growth along, if there's good transport routes, hey, people want to settle, people want to invest in the areas. Industries want to settle there because they can transport their goods. Now what happened to Saldanha Bay? Industrialists said, hey, listen, there's lovely roads. It's even linked to Cape Town. So even if I want to be in Saldanha Bay, I want to transport it via Saldanha Bay or Cape Town, I'm linked so well. So what we'll do is, as an industry, I will settle in that area there. Okay, so what happened? A sort of new industrial area developed. That's your industrial development zone. And it's actually linked to the two. Okay?
All right. That's it from the questions that we have for you, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just need to announce a winner for the calculator.
Okay.
Right. Well, guys, our winner from last week's geography show is Primrose Munyani. Congratulations to you, Primrose Munyani, for getting this test, this Casio calculator. All you need to do, Mindsetter, if you want to be like her, enter the Test Yourself questions. There's a link that will take you to Curio with the code that you need to enter on Curio. Answer those questions correctly. I believe it's simple questions, right?
Yes, they're simple questions. For these brilliant people out there,
Yeah.
whoa, they will nail it.
All right.
You understand?
Well, we believe in you guys. Well, now, you can be like a Primrose, all introduced to answer those questions. But now, back to you, Dave. Last words as we wrap the show.
Learners, one thing I hope you are impressed with my writing today. I'm going to maybe take away the manuals anytime soon. But learners, remember that exam is coming close. Don't just focus on that maths and science. Do your application exercises. Do case studies so that it prepares you. Not knowing the notes and not just knowing the notes and not applying will never give you a good result. Make sure you apply. All the best.
Well said. Thanks, Dave. And well, my teachers, there's nothing that beats a balance. Balance your timetable and make sure that your subjects are well prioritized according to how you understand them and the ones that you don't understand. But for today, that's where we ended. And a big thank you to Macmillan for proudly sponsoring this show. Make sure that you visit their website. For me and Dave and the rest of the team, we're living in peace.